Secretary Tillerson wrapped up his Africa tour with a stop in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Now, during the trip, he tried to repair damaged relations between the U.S. and African leaders. He assured them the United States is, in fact, interested in security and development in the region. He also warned them about doing business with China.
I think it's important that our view be clearly understood. We do not seek to keep Chinese investment dollars from flowing to countries that need those investment dollars. What we are cautioning countries is to look carefully at the implications of the level of debt, the terms of the debt, whether the arrangements around that financing are in fact creating local jobs, local capacity, or are the projects being carried out by foreign labor being brought to your country?
Now, our next guest believes the way the U.S. treats Africa could open the door for more Chinese influence on the continent. Please welcome Mamadou Niang. He's a journalist with Next Media and focuses on African politics exclusively. Now, you heard Rex Tillerson, that comment. Now that he's out, do you think that this opens the door to increasing influence of China in Africa?
All that he said is true. Chinese involvement in Africa is not black and white. But what he's not saying that he is speaking in a building that was built by the Chinese for the African Union.
And I know there was a little bit of controversy with that building.
Yes. Well, what he's not saying also is that in Ethiopia, where he is, there has been, for the past 2 years, $15 billion of investment in infrastructure, in construction, in education, and in industry. So the lag that separates Chinese and American investment and accommodation in Africa is so wide. We believe that even if Hillary Clinton was elected, it would have never been breached. The Chinese,
even if she were elected, we'd still be in a situation.
Absolutely.
So there are 54 countries on the continent. Do you believe that they will now pivot toward China?
Well, we know that there are 37 countries where Chinese are very, very, very deeply involved in so many financial and industrial ways that it will never be undone by American might because of actually the process of American political involvement in Africa. The democracy is a very tough ticket.
Democracy is a very tough and expensive
ticket to work with. And also we know the Obama legacy in Africa also. I mean, the past 6 years we've been trying to catch up with it with China. With the Summit 1, with the Summit 2, and all of that in light of the Chinese penetration into Africa. So the Chinese are in Africa to stay.
The Chinese are in Africa to stay.
Yes.
So there were a couple of blunders that the Trump administration made, a series of diplomatic missteps. I want to just sort of count them down. We have April 2017, Tillerson canceled a scheduled meeting with the African Union, which was pretty traumatic. Then in September 2017, President Trump created a fictitious country, Namibia, which was sort of pretty embarrassing. January 2018, Trump called several African nations the S-hole countries. Can this administration mend fences with Africa?
It's a challenge, and we know that Africa, we believe, is an afterthought for this administration. We also believe that Obama did not understand fully how to engage Africa until the latter days of his administration. But vis-a-vis the Trump administration, there is really no connection, there is no opening, there is no conversation with the African leadership, even in Washington, D.C.
So when
Tillerson had tried.
He tried.
He tried, but belatedly. Now, his own diplomatic ecosystem is not very clear. We know that he doesn't really possess the diplomatic acumen, to handle these relationships. We also know that he doesn't have the political capital actually to take those initiatives.
So he doesn't have the skill, the capital.
Well, he knows Africa because he's dealt, I mean, as an oil baron, he knows at least 5 or 6, you know, oil wealth African countries. But that's all he knew. But then again, with the thinning of the staff at the State Department, with the lack of capacity of the diplomatic corps in Washington, D.C. at the State Department, everything was made hard for him to make progress into bringing, you know, African understanding into Washington. Now, he was not the right person to do that.
He was not the right person to do this.
Yes. We don't know who Pompeo is.
Well, that's a big question right now. We don't have a lot of time, but I want to turn to Chad because it's of strategic importance, geographically larger than Nigeria, but with a much smaller population. It was initially put on that travel ban, but now what does the U.S. have to do because it's such an important strategic partner, literally right in the heart of Africa?
It was a huge blunder. And actually, Tillerson's trip to Africa was dubbed initially just as a makeover, actually, we believe, of the insult that Donald Trump has preferred against African countries.
So that was the makeover, and then the makeover guy was fired.
Well, absolutely. And then the irony is that actually, when leaving to go to Africa, he said bluntly, or not he said, the State Department spokesperson said that this is a trip without deliverables. So don't look after this as something that's going to come out of. This is just a reconnaissance trip.
So the irony is he said this was a trip without deliverables, and then he is delivered off the door. But anyway,
yes.
Go.
No, well, the point is that Chad, they realize after how important strategically it is actually for counterterrorism, America's counterterrorism effort in Africa. That is the only Central and Western African country where they have a drone base. They didn't know that when they put him on the ban. Now, this process takes very long to absorb, but we know from the undersecretary who had confided to the president of Chad that it is being revised. It's just a matter of time when they're going to lift the ban. So part of the reason of this trip was also to take care of that. So it was mending fence, Donald Trump's insult to Africa, and normalizing with Chad. So that was the essence of his trip, which didn't last as long as he anticipated because what happened. So now we realize that we know that when he's got a stomach infection in Nairobi, it's that Saturday, that's because he got the call from Donald Trump.
So the stomach infection was the bad news. Thank you so much. Always good having you on, Mamadou Niang. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure.